Hello everyone and welcome back to the Great Book of Grudges. My name is Nathan and we're back with another State of the Faction video. As I had a lot of fun with the last one and I've been playing an Empire campaign recently, so I figured why not talk about the Empire. One of the first factions which were introduced into the Total War Warhammer series and currently has 4 playable legendary lords. Well, really there's 5, but the 5th one doesn't have his own start position or even campaign start yet, which is still really strange. But the Empire has received a little attention during the few years that the series has been going on. They've had a rework, but it was no way, shape or form as close to the Greenskin rework that we got for the Greenskins a while back with their own DLC, which is a bit strange considering that the Empire did get a DLC in Game 2, which was cross-game DLC, and it just seems that not a lot of attention was brought to both factions rather than more attention going to one. So in this video, like the last State of the Factions, we're going to go over each of the legendary lords, see what's good, see what needs to change, and then talk about the race as a whole. And we're going to start off with the ones which are in a better position, mostly because they don't need any changes, or at least if they do, they need something very minor. So yeah, let's begin. Right, we're going to talk about Marcus Wolfhart, the Hunts Marshal, and he's actually in a pretty good place, considering the fact that he came in a DLC alongside the Lizard Men, and yeah, both of the factions didn't really get a lot of attention, though Marcus could probably argue that he actually got the most. You've got a really interesting start here. You're starting in Illustria, you've got a set campaign where you're fighting against essentially what it is a Warhammer Jurassic Park, but it's a pretty fun campaign at that. Marcus himself plays very drastically different to all the other Empire factions, as he's got a unique way to be able to get special units or just generic units that he just doesn't have access to. He's got a quest system to be able to get some legendary heroes, and his campaign is focused around dealing with a specific enemy rather than going fully sandbox. Yes, even in Immortal Empires you still have this questline, and I think that works out really well because it gives him a thematic campaign. If you're kind of bored about doing the same Empire campaign with Franz or Gelt, and we'll talk about them a little bit later, well, Marcus is usually the best option, I think, for something drastically different at the very least. And I think this is something that was interpreted very well. While I am not really too keen on the fact that the Hunts Marshal, who was known to be in the Drakwold Forest, randomly ends up in Illustria, because it's a bit of a weird start position, it's grown on me. The campaign has really grown on me, and it's really fun. My only really big hope when it comes to the future of the Empire when relating to Marcus Wolfhart is that if new characters get introduced, which we're imagining will happen, they have the level of detail that Marcus got, where campaigns will be different and campaigns will feel, well, you know, unique. It's a really big thing here. It's better to have unique campaigns through all the different legendary lords of specific factions, so then you can actually have more replayability and you won't feel bored and burnt out. Volkmother Grim received a minor change. We can call it a rework, I guess, or an update, depending on how you guys see it. But in the Immortal Empires, his campaign is very different. He no longer starts in Altdorf now. He has been moved down to the Southlands, joining the Southlands Thunderdome, but in a different campaign. So he is focused around getting the Books of Nagash and essentially just putting them away. This means, yes, it's a carbon copy of the Tomb King mechanic that the Tomb King DLC introduced, but it kind of works out kind of well. Another character did also get that, but we'll talk about Manfred in a future video. Volkmar's campaign is just a lot more fun now, and it really just needs a few changes here and there just to kind of add to the rest of it, because I feel like they're almost there. So I'm perfectly fine with them reusing mechanics because I think that that is a smart thing to do. If it works, you might as well reuse it, just don't make it so overused that it becomes a tedious thing and it just looks boring and lazy. In fact, from a lore perspective, this is something that you could imagine Volkmar to do, going out in a mission to basically get rid of some of the, well, not rid of, but just lock away some of the most dangerous, if not the most dangerous books that are in the Warhammer Fantasy world. The only thing I would say is that he would need a landmark, that's pretty much it, just to give you special access to Flagellants a little easier, a little earlier into your campaign, which, yeah, it's only really tier 3 in your settlement, but if you had like a tier 1 or tier 2 landmark, that could already start you with your army theming, and it just kind of works out. But really, the campaign's in a very good place, so I've got no complaints, essentially. Next is Balthazar Gelt, and this is where things need to start changing a little bit. You see, I still stand with the fact that he should not have been the base game Legendary Lord for the Empire alongside Karl Franz. Mostly because what's been done with him makes no sense. He's been moved to the Imperial County of Solent, which has not been a thing for hundreds of years, because the Orcs, well, utterly destroyed it. So this was brought back in an effort to give him a new start position, and yeah, I mean, it works, but it's not really exciting, is it? It's literally just a few regions away from France, so you're essentially getting the same campaign. The campaigns have the same mechanics, and yeah, you do have a spellcaster with Gelt, who is very, very powerful, but again, the same campaign leads to kinda a little bit of boredom, I guess, especially since he's probably got the easier campaign at the very beginning. You just have to get into a few fights, just 2 fights, and you've got your first region locked down. You've also got your fort locked down too, so you're in a better position than Franz is anyway, and it just is a bit of a cakewalk, despite the fact that the Empire clearly has some issues with their campaign. So there's about 2 things that should happen, at least in my opinion, which would change around the stuff for Balthazar as a whole. Firstly, I think that he should be moved eventually, whenever the time comes, but he desperately needs to get moved, especially if we do want more elect accounts in the Empire, which it does make sense for the Empire to have elect account Legendary Lords, because, well, you know, it just makes sense, and he could be anywhere. This is the thing, he's the Supreme Patriarch of the Colleges of Magic. He could be anywhere. It would be kind of nice if he was going up north, say for example, or maybe close to Cathay, Ind, and Koresh, maybe when those areas finally open up, as an effort to find some artifacts, some, hey, anything, you know, things of pure power, investigating demonic occurrences, just something to make him a little bit different and get him the hell away from the Empire, so you don't have the 2 campaigns being exactly the same way. Ind and Koresh, either of those locations would be great, considering Balthazar's nature, where, let's face it, he's a bit of a dumbass. If you go into the end time scenarios, he's very easily influenced to try out the whole lore of undeath. So this could be something in that nature where he's actually going to, say, Koresh, because he heard of that interesting type of blood magic they have, and he wants to learn more. It's only a matter of time until those areas open up. We know that they have that planned for possibly minor factions in the future, and then maybe we'll get them as proper races too, so it would be a kind of interesting thing. Plus it frees up the Empire a little bit more for Legendary Lords which would stay in the Empire, like, you know, Marius Lightdorf, Boris Todbringer, if he ever gets made into a proper playable character. Who knows? But again, it adds to a little bit more freedom, and I think that would be kind of nice, just to move things around, because it does work out quite well. I am more incentivized to play as characters from the same races if they're moved around, as it gives me a reason to try out something new, a completely different start. The second thing would be a Colleges of Magic mechanic. Now, this could either just be for Balthazar, or it could be for all the Empire, because it kind of makes sense, and obviously we'd have to wait until we finally get every single Lore of Magic and Lord and Hero variant, which we're still waiting. We've seen concept art of the others. Obviously, the Lore of Metal Wizard is in the art book, yet we still don't have a Lore of Metal Wizard. But a Colleges of Magic stuff, like the Ice Court, would work out really well. Again, yes, it's taking from another mechanic that belongs to another race, but it does make a lot of sense because it's in a very similar thing. It's like literally carbon copy lore. Also, it's kind of important to note that the Ice Court mechanic was basically just taking inspiration from the whole Colleges of Magic anyway. And I think that would just add in a bunch more flavor, and you could level up your spellcasters, get them a few better abilities. Hell, if this becomes a baseline thing for the Empire as a whole, well, then the one for Balthazar could just give them a bit more experience, so they'll be even stronger because, well, it makes sense that the Supreme Patriarch is going to have stronger wizards around him. I mean, yeah. This could easily be just something very unique for Balthazar, just to give him something new, which again makes sense with the whole how the Tomb King mechanic was given to Volkmother, and really it's just to get rid of the whole weird elect account mechanic, because he's not really an elect account He's the Supreme Patriarch, and it really does bother me from a lore perspective. And yes, I know gameplay should trump lore, but let's be honest, it's a bad system. And lastly, we have Franz, the leader of this faction, and in theory, he's fine. I know, that sounds weird, but really, he is fine. He's a perfectly good campaign. He's got some great little things to work around him, extra prestige and all that type of stuff. But the real issue is something that is available to all elect accounts, and we're going to talk about that and then expand from there, right? So the elect account mechanic actually works pretty well, right? Get a character, stick him into an electoral spot, get a special item, get a special unit, get a special bonus. Yeah, pretty good. I mean, in the end of the day, it kind of makes sense. You need to control that province and all that, but yeah, it's something pretty decent. It only gets a bit more annoying when you start looking towards the authority part of it, right? So, authority in itself is kind of badly done, and that's the only way I can say it, because you've got one bonus and the rest of them are all negatives. Sure, some of the negatives aren't too bad, like say for example at negative at 0, well not negative anything, you get -5 growth for all provinces, which is annoying but still perfectly fine. But only having one bonus, which is actually kind of crap overall, and just so many negatives in an area which right now is going to suffer more for it, this just makes Franz's campaign a bit more annoying. The more threats that are added to the Empire, like say for example Festus right now, Dryka, Norscan invaders, any Warriors of Chaos from Norsca 2, Hell Bellicor, Azag, there's a lot that can come in and just ruin your authority, which is kinda annoying as, yeah, it's just not great, right? It becomes a bit of a struggle, and really what there should be is a middle ground and more bonuses, meaning that you should be able to build up from more bonuses and enjoy the fact that you're getting more bonuses. I think that's probably the best way of saying it, because, yeah, getting to the bonuses can be annoying. It actually takes a decent amount of time, and only having one is just bizarre. And yes, I am aware that this isn't really just specific to Franz right now, it's also specific to Gelt, but I feel like any character that will be based in the lands of the Empire that is a Empire Lord needs to have a little bit of a bonus system here, just to give you a little bit more incentive and less focusing on the negatives, which is just like, it is more punishing than anything, isn't it? You start off at 0 anyway, which is kind of frustrating. But if we look to something specific to Franz, we look towards the electoral machinations, which basically is just here to kind of boost up your relations or decrease relations within the different Empire factions. You know, kind of works out. I like it. It's fine. The only thing is, if it's going to be used by the Emperor, it should be a little bit different. It should have functions for loads of different things. Rather than just improve or decrease relations, there should be, you know, a lot more options for the Emperor himself to kind of use his influence on the prestige, right? Maybe you can use this to get a defensive alliance. Maybe you can use this to get a trade agreement, not just with another faction, but if you, say, for example, want Middenheim and Nordland to get a little better on, you can use that to get them to have a trade agreement. You're using your prestige. You are the Emperor. Perhaps what could happen is, depending on the fealty, is depending on how many options you have. So if you have high fealty with, say, for example, Midland, you can tell him to get a trade agreement or a defensive alliance with Nordland, and this keeps the Empire more secure. I know this sounds a little bit strange, but I think it kind of works, as then we're going to come into a second thing that kind of links up anyway. It could tie to the main elect account mechanic, where instead of confederating, you have the option, but maybe you don't want to confederate and you can just vassalize them, keeping all the Empire provinces as their own thing, but falling under you. We know that the vassal system is definitely a lot better now, especially with how it's been reworked for the Warriors of Chaos, so it's not completely out of the question that something like this could be added in, just to add in a bit more flavor. So you can have your factions here defending the Empire, and you could focus on expanding the Empire. It could be kind of fun here, and this would mean that Franz and Franz alone would have such a mechanic, just because he is the Emperor. If any other legendary lords get introduced, they would need to become the Emperor. There'd have to be a certain mechanic to allow you to become the Emperor, as it's not really the fact that he rules Altdorf. Really, the imperial capital can be anywhere, depending on who rules. Yes, this doesn't fix every issue that the Empire currently has, but I think it brings a little bit more flavor. Obviously, I could be wrong, and if you guys have any ideas, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. We can start a bit of a discussion, as really, I want to see the Empire improve. They're falling behind. They're a Game 1 race, and everyone, barring the Greenskins, is kind of falling behind. Well, not the Wood Elves and the Beastmen, because they got really good reworks. And yes, the original rework for the Empire was decent, but it's becoming obvious that it's becoming dated. Anyways, I don't really want to do a state of the faction so close together, but I thought like talking about the Empire today would be kind of nice because I've been playing around with them and I had some inspiration. And yes, I know some people are going to say, yeah, well, we need Boris, we need Marius, we need this, we need that. And yeah, I really believe that we should get some sort of Champions of Chaos style Account DLC, which we'll talk about in the future. But the idea is what can fix the stuff that's already available to us, as well, we could imagine and we could hope, knock on wood, that any new characters that get introduced will be in a Game 3 standard, but the older ones are kind of dated at the moment, at least 2 of them at the very least. Anyways, like I said, let me know your thoughts in the comments below and let's start a bit of a discussion. Until then, I'll see you all again very, very soon. Have a good day.